Oh, now you want me? Liam's voice cut through the silence of his executive office like a blade. Standing in her designer heels and perfectly tailored dress, Celeste, his ex-wife, looked smaller than he remembered. Liam, please. I made a mistake. I was hurt, I was angry. You were hurt. He leaned back in his leather chair, his eyes cold as winter steel. You grabbed the steering wheel while I was driving. You caused the accident that destroyed my chances of having children. And then you left me because I couldn't give you what the crash took away. Celeste's voice cracked. I didn't know. You didn't know what? That karma has a sense of humor? Liam stood up slowly, his presence commanding the room. Because while you were out there searching for a man who could give you children, I was already a father. To twins. Beautiful, brilliant 2-year-olds who call me daddy every single day. Welcome back, Golden Family, to my amazing subscribers. Thank you for being part of this journey. Your comments, your shares, your incredible support is what makes these stories possible. And to everyone watching, you're about to witness one of the most shocking tales of revenge, redemption, and unexpected fatherhood I've ever shared. If you're new here, I'm your host, and you've just walked into something extraordinary. Now, let's get back to the story. The champagne bubbled in crystal glasses as congratulations filled the penthouse suite. Liam Caldwell, just 29 years old, had done what most tech entrepreneurs only dreamed of. He'd built something revolutionary and sold it for $300 million. To the genius who just became stupidly rich. Andrew raised his glass, grinning at his best friend. The room erupted in cheers from the small circle of friends who'd watched Liam code his way from a cramped apartment to this moment. Liam smiled, but it was the quiet smile of someone who'd rather be home with a good book than celebrating. That was Liam, brilliant, loyal, controlled. The type of man who remembered everyone's birthday but forgot to celebrate his own victories. Come on, man, Jake slapped him on the back. You can't just sit there looking modest. You literally changed the world today. This calls for more than champagne and takeout pizza. This is perfect, Liam replied, loosening his tie. Good friends, good food. What else do I need? His friends exchanged knowing looks. They'd planned this intervention for weeks. What you need, Andrew said with a mischievous grin, is a proper celebration. The kind that matches what you just accomplished. We've already booked it, Jake added quickly before Liam could protest. The Meridian Hotel. Presidential suite. Tomorrow night. Consider it our gift to you. Liam shook his head. Guys, you don't have to. Oh, but we do. Andrew's eyes sparkled with the kind of trouble that good friends create. You're getting married to Celeste in 2 months. This is your official bachelor party. No arguments. The mention of his fiancée made Liam's expression soften. Celeste Martinez, stunning, sophisticated, the kind of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room. They'd met at a charity gala, and within minutes she'd captivated him with her intelligence and ambition. She was everything he thought he wanted, polished, connected, driven. Celeste would kill me if she knew you were planning something wild, Liam laughed. What Celeste doesn't know won't hurt her, Jake winked. Besides, she's probably planning her own wild bachelorette party as we speak. The next evening, Liam found himself in the elevator of the Meridian Hotel, adjusting his collar nervously. The presidential suite was exactly what he'd expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, marble surfaces everywhere, and enough space to host a small conference. His friends had gone all out. A bartender mixed cocktails in the corner while soft jazz played from hidden speakers. The atmosphere was elegant but relaxed, exactly Liam's style. Now this is how you celebrate becoming a tech mogul. Andrew handed him a whiskey neat. No expense spared for our boy. The evening flowed smoothly. Stories were shared, dreams discussed, and for the first time in months, Liam felt truly relaxed. The pressure of the acquisition, the wedding planning, the constant media attention, it all melted away in the warmth of friendship and aged whiskey. But as the night wore on, Liam noticed his friends becoming more secretive, exchanging glances and whispering in corners. What are you two plotting now? He asked, his words slightly slurred from the alcohol. Nothing, Jake said too quickly. Just making sure you have the complete celebration experience. Before Liam could ask what that meant, there was a soft knock at the door. Andrew practically jumped to answer it, and Liam heard him speaking in hushed tones to someone in the hallway. Trust us on this one, Andrew said when he returned, his expression serious for the first time all evening. You deserve something special tonight. Another knock. This time Jake answered, and when he stepped aside, Liam's breath caught in his throat. She stood in the doorway like in vision, long dark hair cascading over her shoulders, wearing a simple black dress that was elegant rather than revealing. but it was her eyes that stopped him cold. Deep, intelligent, with a vulnerability that made his chest tighten. "Liam," Andrew said gently, "this is Alani. If you're wondering how a night that started with good intentions could change everything, hit that like button. Because what's about to happen will set in motion a chain of events that nobody, not even Liam, could have predicted." Alani Rivera stood frozen in the doorway, her heart hammering against her ribs. This wasn't supposed to be her life. 6 months ago, she'd been valedictorian of her undergraduate class, accepted to law school with dreams of changing the world. Now she was drowning in student loans that seemed to multiply faster than she could count them. She'd almost turned around 3 times in the hotel lobby. Almost walked away from the arrangement that would pay for her next semester. But desperation has a way of making decisions for you. "Hi," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam stared at her, the whiskey making everything feel dreamlike. She wasn't what he'd expected. There was an intelligence in her eyes that caught him completely off guard, a grace that seemed natural rather than practiced. "I should go," he said suddenly, standing up too quickly. The room spun slightly. I'm not this guy." "It's okay," Alani said, stepping into the room as Andrew and Jake discreetly made their exit, closing the door behind them. "We don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with." Something in her tone made him look at her more closely. "You don't want to be here either." It wasn't a question. Somehow, through the alcohol haze, he could see the same reluctance in her that he felt. "Not really," she admitted, setting her small purse on the marble counter. "But life doesn't always give us the choices we want." "What's your story?" Liam asked, settling back onto the leather sofa. "And please don't give me some rehearsed answer. I can tell you're too smart for this." Alani hesitated, then moved to the window overlooking the city lights. "Law school. Student loans that could fund a small country. Parents who think I'm studying abroad because I'm too ashamed to tell them I can barely afford noodles. Why law? Because I wanted to fight for people who can't fight for themselves." She turned to face him, and in that moment something shifted between them. "Turns out justice is expensive." Liam felt his heart clench. Here was someone with the same drive he'd had, the same desire to make a difference, but trapped by circumstances he'd been lucky enough to escape. "What if I just paid for your semester?" he asked suddenly. "No strings attached. You could leave right now." Alani's eyes widened. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." He stood up, moving closer to her. "I know you're brilliant. I know you're desperate enough to be here but honest enough to admit you don't want to be. I know you have dreams worth fighting for." For a moment they stood there looking at each other, and something electric passed between them. Not just attraction, recognition. Like two souls acknowledging each other across a crowded room. "I can't let you do that," she said finally. "I don't take charity." "Then what do you take?" She moved closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something light and floral that made his head spin more than the whiskey. "What are you offering?" "Conversation," he said, his voice rough. "Just talk to me. Tell me about your dreams. Let me tell you about mine. Sometimes that's worth more than anything else." They settled onto the sofa, and for the next 2 hours they talked. About law and justice, about technology and changing the world, about growing up with ambition in their bones. Liam found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone. His fears about the acquisition, his uncertainty about his upcoming marriage, his dream of using his wealth to help kids who reminded him of his younger self. Alani spoke about her childhood in a small town where being smart marked you as different, about working 3 jobs to pay for college, about the crushing weight of believing you have to save everyone. "You're getting married," she said softly as the conversation lulled. "In 2 months. Do you love her?" Liam was quiet for a long moment. "I thought I did. But sitting here with you, I'm not sure I even know what love is." The honesty hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. "I should go," Alani whispered, but she didn't move. "Stay," he said, his hand finding hers. "Please. Just stay." What happened next was tender and inevitable. Not the transaction his friends had arranged, but something genuine and desperate and beautiful. 2 lonely souls finding solace in each other for one night, knowing it could never be more. When morning came, Liam stirred to find himself alone. The sheets beside him were empty except for a small stain that would haunt his dreams for years to come. Alani was gone, as if she'd been nothing more than a beautiful dream. He never saw the single tear she'd left on his pillow, or the note she'd written and then torn up, explaining how meeting him had changed everything she thought she knew about connection and timing and fate. If you've ever met someone at exactly the wrong time but felt like they might be exactly the right person, you know the heartbreak that's coming. Share this with someone who believes that some connections transcend circumstances, because this story is just beginning. The cathedral bells chimed as flashbulbs illuminated the perfect couple. Liam Caldwell, tech mogul, standing beside Celeste Martinez, socialite and heir to a hotel empire. The wedding photos would grace magazine covers for months. Two beautiful people living what everyone assumed was a fairy tale. But fairy tales, Liam was learning, were just stories people told to make reality more bearable. "Smile wider, darling," Celeste whispered through her perfect smile as photographers captured their first dance. The Times photographer is getting the money shot. Even on their wedding day, it was about the image. About who was watching, who was impressed, who would remember them as the golden couple of the year. 6 months into their marriage, the gold was already tarnishing. The Hendersons' annual charity gala is next weekend, Celeste announced, flipping through her tablet at their marble kitchen island. She was dressed in designer activewear that cost more than most people's monthly rent, fresh from her morning Pilates session. "I'll be in Seattle that weekend," Liam replied, not looking up from his laptop. The nonprofit board meeting got moved up. "Cancel it." Her tone was so casual, so dismissive, that it took him a moment to process what she'd said. "I'm sorry?" "Cancel the meeting, Liam. This is important." She finally looked at him, her green eyes hard. "Margaret Henderson specifically asked about you. She wants to introduce you to some investors who could be valuable connections. Celeste, these kids depend on this program. I can't just. Those kids will be fine for one more week." She stood up, smoothing her yoga pants. "But our social calendar won't wait. Do you have any idea how difficult it was to get invited to this event?" Liam closed his laptop slowly. "Since when is our social calendar more important than helping underprivileged children get into college?" "Since you married me." Her voice carried that edge he was hearing more and more often. "Like it or not, you're part of a different world now. My world. And in my world, connections matter more than causes. That's not who I am." "Then maybe you need to figure out who you are." She grabbed her purse, preparing to leave for whatever lunch or shopping expedition filled her afternoons. "Because the man I married understood that image matters. Success is about who you know, not just what you do. The man you married built a $300 million company from his bedroom. I think I know something about success." Celeste turned at the door, her expression icy. "And where would that company be without the right investors? Without the connections I introduced you to? Without the credibility my family name gave you?" The accusation hung in the air like poison. Liam felt something shift inside him, a crack in the foundation he'd thought was solid. That weekend he attended the Henderson Gala. He smiled for photos with people whose names he'd forget by morning. He listened to Celeste network with surgical precision, dropping his achievements into conversations like chess pieces being moved across a board. "Liam's company is already being acquired by Microsoft," she told Margaret Henderson's daughter. "He's being considered for their innovation board. Aren't you, darling?" It was news to him. But he smiled and nodded because that's what husbands did, apparently. The drive home was quiet until they hit the highway. "See how easy that was?" Celeste said, touching up her lipstick in the passenger mirror. "Margaret's daughter is dating a venture capitalist. She's going to introduce us at the winter retreat in Aspen." "I don't want to go to Aspen." "What you want is irrelevant, Liam. What we need is what matters." "When did we become we? When did my dreams become our strategy sessions?" Celeste snapped the mirror shut. "When you put a ring on my finger. Marriage is a partnership, whether you like it or not. This isn't a partnership. This is you trying to manage my life like one of your social events. Someone has to manage it. Left to your own devices, you'd spend every weekend at some community center teaching kids to code instead of building the empire we could have together." The words hit him like a slap. "Those kids matter more to me than your empire." "More than your wife?" The question was a trap and they both knew it. But Liam was tired of walking through conversational minefields every time they talked about anything meaningful. "Right now?" "Yes." Celeste's face flushed red. "Pull over." "What?" "I said pull over. If you think those ungrateful little..." "Don't?" Liam's voice was deadly quiet. "Don't you dare finish that sentence." But Celeste was beyond reason now, beyond the careful control she usually maintained. "You want to throw away everything we could build together for what? Some charity case kids who'll forget your name the minute they don't need you anymore? At least they're grateful for help instead of entitled to it." The slap came without warning. Not hard, but shocking enough that Liam swerved slightly before regaining control of the wheel. "How dare you?" "How dare I what?" "Tell the truth." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. When did you become someone I don't even recognize? I became someone worthy of the life you can provide, she screamed. But you're too blind to see the opportunities right in front of you. The only thing I see right in front of me is... Celeste grabbed the steering wheel. The sound of crushing metal was the last thing Liam remembered clearly for weeks. When consciousness finally returned, it came in fragments. White ceiling tiles. The steady beep of machines. The smell of disinfectant that made his stomach turn. And pain? God, the pain that shot through his body like lightning every time he tried to move. Mr. Caldwell? A gentle voice broke through the fog. A nurse with kind eyes leaned over him, checking the monitors that surrounded his bed like electronic sentries. Can you hear me? He tried to speak, but his throat felt like sandpaper. The nurse held a cup of water to his lips, and the cool liquid was the most beautiful thing he'd ever tasted. How long? He managed to croak. 3 weeks, she said softly. You've been in and out. Your wife has been here every day. Wife. The word brought everything rushing back. The argument. Celeste grabbing the wheel. The moment when control became chaos and their car became a missile aimed at concrete. Is she? Mrs. Caldwell is fine. Minor injuries only. She'll be so relieved to know you're awake. But when Celeste walked into his room an hour later, relief wasn't what he saw in her eyes. She looked perfect as always, her hair styled, her makeup flawless, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than the hospital equipment keeping him alive. Thank God, she said, but her voice lacked the warmth he expected. She sat in the chair beside his bed without touching him. The doctors weren't sure when you'd wake up. Celeste. His voice was stronger now, though every word felt like swallowing glass. What happened? After the crash, I mean. She looked away, focusing on something beyond the window. You don't remember? I remember you grabbing the wheel. I remember losing control. Everything after that is blank. For a long moment she said nothing. When she finally spoke, her words were carefully measured. The car hit the divider at full speed. You took the worst of it. I was lucky. Lucky. He studied her face, looking for something, remorse, guilt, acknowledgement of what her actions had caused. But Celeste had always been good at compartmentalizing inconvenient truths. Have you spoken to the doctors? She asked, changing the subject with the skill of someone who'd had weeks to practice avoiding uncomfortable conversations. Not yet. Just the nurse. They'll want to discuss your recovery timeline. There were complications. Something in her tone made his blood run cold. What kind of complications? Before she could answer, Dr. Morrison entered the room. He was an older man with silver hair and the kind of gentle authority that comes from delivering difficult news for 30 years. Mr. Caldwell, it's good to see you awake. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. Or hit a concrete wall at 80 miles per hour. Dr. Morrison's smile was sad. That's not far from the truth. We need to discuss your injuries and what they mean for your recovery. Liam felt Celeste shift beside him, but when he looked at her, she was staring at her hands. The good news is that you're alive, Dr. Morrison continued. The bad news is that the trauma to your lower abdomen and pelvis was severe. We managed to repair most of the damage, but there were complications that will have lasting effects. What kind of effects? The doctor pulled up a chair, and Liam knew whatever was coming would change everything. The impact caused significant damage to your reproductive system. We did everything we could, but the trauma has severely impacted your fertility. The chances of you fathering a child naturally are extremely unlikely. The words hit him harder than the crash had. Liam had always assumed children would come later, when he was ready, when life settled into the patterns he'd planned. Now those patterns were shattered glass on a highway. Extremely unlikely, he repeated. But not impossible? I don't want to give you false hope, Mr. Caldwell. The damage was extensive. Liam turned to look at Celeste, expecting to see the same devastation he felt. Instead, he saw something that chilled him to the bone: resignation. As if this news wasn't shocking but merely confirming something she'd already accepted. You knew, he said quietly. The doctors told me when they thought you might not wake up, she replied without meeting his eyes. They needed someone to make medical decisions. And you didn't think to mention it when I woke up? I thought it should come from them. But there was something else in her voice now, something that made his chest tighten with a different kind of pain. Distance. The careful politeness of someone who'd already started pulling away. The next few months passed in a blur of physical therapy, surgeries, and the slow, agonizing process of learning to walk properly again. Through it all, Celeste maintained the facade of the devoted wife. She attended doctor appointments, helped arrange his care, smiled for the photographers who occasionally caught them leaving the hospital. But at home the distance between them grew like a chasm. She stopped sleeping in their bedroom, claiming his medical equipment disturbed her rest. She stopped asking about his therapy sessions. Most telling of all, she stopped talking about their future together. "I've been thinking," she said one evening as he struggled through his prescribed exercises in their home gym. "Maybe we should take a break from trying for children. Focus on your recovery first." They hadn't been trying for children. They'd never even discussed it seriously. But Liam understood what she was really saying. For how long? Celeste adjusted the weight on her own machine, avoiding his gaze. "However long it takes." "However long what takes, Celeste? For you to get better? And if I don't? If this is as better as I get?" The silence that followed was answer enough. That night, lying alone in the bed they used to share, Liam stared at the ceiling and wondered when his wife had become a stranger. When the woman who'd promised to love him in sickness and health had decided that some sickness was too much to bear. He didn't know it yet, but Celeste had already made her decision. She was just waiting for the right moment to tell him. And when that moment came, it would destroy what little faith he had left in love, loyalty, and the promises people make when they think life will always be easy. Comment below if you've ever had someone show their true character during your darkest moment. Because Liam's about to learn that sometimes the people closest to us are the ones capable of the deepest betrayal. The conversation Liam had been dreading came on a Tuesday evening, exactly 1 year after the crash. He was in his study reviewing proposals for his nonprofit's college scholarship program, when Celeste appeared in the doorway like a perfectly dressed executioner. She'd been to the salon that day, her hair was styled in soft waves, her makeup flawless, her outfit carefully chosen. She looked like someone preparing for an important meeting, which Liam realized with growing dread, was exactly what this was. "We need to talk," she said, settling into the leather chair across from his desk with the composed grace of someone who'd rehearsed this moment. Liam saved his document and closed his laptop, giving her his full attention. "About what?" "About us. About our marriage. About where we go from here." The words were delivered with clinical precision, as if she were discussing a business transaction rather than the end of their life together. "I've been thinking a lot this year," she continued, crossing her legs and folding her hands in her lap. "About what I want from life. What I need to be happy. And I've realized that we want different things now. That we've grown in different directions." Liam leaned back in his chair, studying his wife's face. She looked calm, resolved, like someone who'd already made peace with a difficult decision. "What exactly are you saying, Celeste?" "I'm saying that I think we should separate." The words hung in the air between them like smoke from a fire that had been burning for months. Liam felt a strange sense of relief mixed with devastating sadness. Part of him had been waiting for this conversation since the day he'd woken up in the hospital to find a stranger wearing his wife's face. "Because of the fertility issue," he said quietly. Celeste's composure cracked for just a moment. "It's not just that. But it's part of it." She looked away, focusing on the window that overlooked their perfectly manicured garden. "I always planned to have children, Liam. It wasn't negotiable for me. It was part of the life I envisioned. There are other options. Adoption, fertility treatments. I want my own children." Her voice was firm, final. "I want to experience pregnancy, childbirth, raising a child that's biologically mine. That's not something I'm willing to compromise on." Liam felt something break inside him, a fracture that ran deeper than the physical injuries from the crash. "So you're leaving me because I can't give you children?" "I'm leaving because we're incompatible now. Because staying married to you means giving up something that's fundamental to who I am." "And what about your vows? In sickness and health?" For the first time, anger flashed in Celeste's green eyes. "Don't you dare throw our wedding vows at me. I've spent the last year taking care of you, supporting your recovery, pretending that everything was fine when inside I was dying." "Dying?" Liam's voice rose. "You were dying? I'm the one who almost died. I'm the one whose body was destroyed. I'm the one who lost everything that night. You lost your fertility, Liam. I lost my future." The cruelty of the statement took his breath away. He stared at her, this woman he'd once loved, this stranger who could reduce his pain to an inconvenience in her life plan. "Is there someone else?" he asked quietly. Celeste's hesitation was answer enough, but she responded anyway. "Not yet. But I've been thinking about what my life could look like with someone who can give me what I want. Someone who can give you children. Someone who's whole." The word hit him like a physical blow. Oh. As if the crash had made him less than human, as if his worth as a man had been measured and found wanting. I see. Liam's voice was steady now, the shock giving way to something harder, more protective. And when did you decide I wasn't whole anymore? Liam. When, Celeste? Was it in the hospital when the doctor gave us the news? Was it during my first physical therapy session when I could barely walk across the room? Or was it the first time you looked at me and realized I couldn't be the perfect husband for your perfect life anymore? Tears appeared in her eyes, but they seemed more about her own discomfort than any genuine sadness for what they were losing. This isn't easy for me either, she said. Isn't it? Liam stood up slowly, his movements still careful after months of recovery. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you checked out of this marriage the moment my usefulness to you ended. That's not fair. Fair? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you not grabbing the steering wheel during an argument. Fair would have been you apologizing for causing the crash that destroyed my body. Fair would have been you fighting for our marriage instead of shopping for my replacement. Celeste stood up as well, her composure finally cracking completely. I never wanted any of this to happen. But it did happen. And when it did, you chose to abandon me instead of figuring out how to build a different kind of life together. I can't be married to someone who can't give me children. The raw honesty of her confession filled the room like poison gas. There it was, the truth she'd been dancing around for months, delivered with the brutal efficiency of a surgeon's scalpel. Then you were never really married to me at all, Liam said quietly. You were married to what I could provide. And the moment I couldn't provide it anymore, the marriage was over. Celeste picked up her purse, her movements sharp and defensive. I'll have my lawyer contact yours about the divorce proceedings. Of course you will. Efficient to the end. She paused at the door, her back to him. For what it's worth, I'm sorry it ended this way. No, you're not, Liam replied. You're sorry it's messy. You're sorry it makes you look bad. But you're not sorry it's ending. You've been planning this exit strategy since the day you realized I wasn't the man you married anymore. After she left, Liam sat alone in his study for hours, staring at the scholarship applications scattered across his desk. Kids from broken homes, kids who'd been told they weren't good enough, kids who needed someone to believe in them when no one else would. He understood them now in a way he never had before. He knew what it felt like to be discarded when you became inconvenient, to be measured and found lacking by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. The irony wasn't lost on him. The woman who'd left him because he couldn't father children had unknowingly pushed him toward a life dedicated to helping other people's children succeed. Sometimes the people who break us end up showing us exactly who we're meant to become. Hit that like button if you believe that sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the best discoveries about ourselves. Because Liam's about to learn that losing everything he thought he wanted was actually making room for everything he truly needed. The silence in Liam's penthouse was deafening. For the first month after Celeste moved out, he'd wake up expecting to hear her morning routine, the whir of her expensive coffee machine, the click of her heels on marble floors, the sound of financial news playing from her tablet. Instead, there was nothing but the hum of air conditioning and the distant sounds of a city that continued moving while his world stood still. Work became his salvation and his prison. 18-hour days blurred into sleepless nights as he threw himself into project after project, acquisition after acquisition. His financial advisors marveled at his aggressive expansion strategy. His board members praised his laser focus on growth. What they didn't see was a man running from his own reflection, terrified of the quiet moments when his failures would catch up with him. You're going to burn out, Andrew warned during one of their monthly dinners. His best friend studied him across the table at their usual restaurant, concern etched in every line of his face. When's the last time you took a vacation? Hell, when's the last time you left the office before midnight? I'm fine, Liam replied, cutting his steak with mechanical precision. Busy is good. Busy means progress. Busy means avoidance. Andrew leaned forward. Look, I know the divorce was brutal, but you can't work yourself to death to forget about it. I'm not trying to forget anything. I'm trying to build something meaningful. By destroying yourself in the process? Liam set down his fork and looked at his friend, really looked at him. Andrew had been there through everything. The bachelor party that changed his life, the crash that nearly ended it, the divorce that shattered what was left. He deserved honesty. Do you know what Celeste said to me the night she left? Liam asked quietly. Something terrible, I'm guessing. She said I wasn't whole anymore. That being married to me meant giving up her future. He picked up his water glass, noting how his hand trembled slightly. And the thing is, Andrew, she was right. The hell she was. No, listen. She was right that I'm not the same man she married. The crash changed me in ways that go beyond the physical damage. I can't have children naturally. I walk with a slight limp when I'm tired. I have panic attacks sometimes when I drive in heavy traffic. Liam met his friend's eyes. But she was wrong about one thing. I'm not less whole, I'm just whole in a different way. Andrew smiled for the first time that evening. There's the Liam I know. So what are you going to do about it? The answer came to him 3 weeks later, sitting in his office at 2 a.m., reviewing quarterly reports that all showed the same thing. Massive profits, expanding market share, and a company that was growing faster than ever. He was successful by every measure that mattered to the business world. So why did he feel so empty? His laptop chimed with an email notification. Usually he ignored late-night messages, but something about the sender's name caught his attention. Maria Santos, Director of Chicago Youth Development. Mr. Caldwell. I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing on behalf of the Chicago Youth Development Center, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing educational opportunities for underserved children in our community. We've followed your career with great admiration, particularly your innovative approaches to technology education. We're launching a new program called Future Builders, aimed at teaching coding and entrepreneurship skills to kids from low-income families. Would you consider being a guest speaker at our upcoming Youth Summit? These children need role models who can show them that success is possible regardless of their circumstances. Thank you for your consideration. Best regards, Maria Santos. Liam read the email 3 times before he understood why it affected him so deeply. These weren't just kids who needed computer skills. These were kids who'd been told they weren't good enough, weren't smart enough, didn't come from the right families to dream big dreams. Kids like he'd been once, before the money and success had insulated him from that kind of struggle. He typed his response immediately. The meeting with Maria Santos changed everything. She was a former teacher who'd left the classroom to fight for systemic change, and her passion was infectious. Within 2 hours, they'd outlined a program that would provide not just tuition assistance, but mentorship, internships, and ongoing support for kids who reminded Liam of his younger self. Why are you doing this? Maria asked as they wrapped up their planning session. Liam was quiet for a long moment, thinking about Celeste's words, about the crash that had redefined his life, about the children he'd never have and the children he could still help raise. Because I used to think success meant building something for myself, he said finally. Now I realize it means building something that outlasts me. The Caldwell Foundation launched 6 months later with an initial endowment of $50 million. The first class of scholarship recipients was 30 kids from Chicago's most underserved neighborhoods, selected not just for their academic potential but for their resilience in the face of adversity. After the event, as families celebrated and took pictures, Liam felt something he hadn't experienced since before the crash: contentment. Not happiness exactly, but a deep sense of purpose that made all the pain of the past few years feel worthwhile. His phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. Saw the news coverage. This is who you were always meant to be. Maybe his friend was right. Maybe losing everything he thought he wanted had been necessary to discover everything he actually needed. The Chicago Youth Law Camp was exactly the kind of program Liam loved supporting: ambitious kids from tough backgrounds learning about justice, advocacy, and fighting for what's right. When Maria Santos suggested he speak at their closing ceremony, he'd agreed immediately. The community center buzzed with teenage energy as 50 young people from across the city gathered for their final presentations. These weren't privileged kids playing at being lawyers. These were teenagers who'd seen injustice firsthand and wanted to do something about it. Ladies and gentlemen, the camp director announced, please welcome tech entrepreneur and founder of the Caldwell Foundation, Mr. Liam Caldwell. The presentation went well. The kids asked smart questions about entrepreneurship, social impact, and using success to create change. Afterward, Liam mingled with the students and their families, signing autographs and listening to their stories. He was getting ready to leave when he heard his name called from across the room. Liam Caldwell? The voice was familiar in a way that made his chest tighten. He turned around and the world seemed to stop. She stood 20 feet away, holding a clipboard and wearing a tailored navy suit that spoke of professional success. Her dark hair was shorter now, styled in a sleek bob that framed her face beautifully. But it was her eyes that confirmed what his racing heart already knew, those same intelligent, vulnerable eyes that had haunted his dreams for 4 years. Alani Rivera. She looked older, more confident, carrying herself with the authority of someone who'd fought for her place in the world and won. But underneath the professional polish, he could still see traces of the young woman who'd shared her dreams with him in a hotel room that felt like a lifetime ago. Alani. Her name came out as barely a whisper. She walked toward him with measured steps, her expression unreadable. When she stopped in front of him, close enough that he could smell the subtle perfume he remembered, she extended her hand in a formal gesture. "It's good to see you again," she said, her voice steady and professional. But he caught the slight tremor in her fingers when he shook her hand. You work here? I run this program." She gestured around the community center with obvious pride. "I'm the director of legal education for the Chicago Youth Development Center. We launched the law camp 2 years ago." Liam felt the pieces clicking into place. Maria Santos mentioned she was working with a brilliant young lawyer who designed the curriculum. "That was you." Guilty as charged. A small smile played at the corners of her mouth, the first crack in her professional armor. "Though I have to say, when I saw your name on the speaker list, I wondered if you'd remember me." "Remember you?" He almost laughed at the absurdity of the question. "Alani, We should talk," she interrupted, glancing around the room full of teenagers and parents. "Privately. There are things we need to discuss." Something in her tone made his pulse quicken. Not just nervousness, urgency. As if she'd been carrying something heavy for years and had finally found the right moment to set it down. "Of course. When? Where?" "My office is upstairs. The building empties out in about 20 minutes. The wait felt eternal. Liam helped pack up chairs and say goodbye to families, all while acutely aware of Alani moving through the room with practiced efficiency, checking off items on her clipboard, ensuring everything was properly organized for the cleaning crew. Finally, the last family left. The community center fell quiet except for the distant hum of traffic outside and the sound of Liam's own heartbeat in his ears. "This way," Alani said, leading him toward a narrow staircase. Her office was small but personal. Law books lined one wall, framed photos of smiling teenagers covered another, and a massive desk dominated the center of the room. But what caught Liam's attention were the 2 small drawings stuck to her bulletin board with pushpins. Crayon drawings that looked like they'd been made by very young children. "Alani," he began, but she held up a hand to stop him. "Before you say anything, I need you to know that I tried to find you. After that night, I looked for weeks." "What do you mean you tried to find me?" She sat down behind her desk, her hands folded in front of her like a lawyer preparing to present a case. "I tracked down your information and saw the engagement announcement in the business journals. I realized you were getting married." "You saw the engagement announcement. Beautiful bride-to-be. Society wedding of the year. Perfect couple." Her voice was carefully neutral, but he could hear the old pain underneath. "I decided not to complicate your life." "Complicate my life how?" Alani took a deep breath, and in that moment, Liam knew that whatever she was about to say would change everything. "Again. Because I was pregnant, Liam. And the baby was yours." The words hit him like a physical blow. He gripped the arms of his chair, trying to process what she'd just said. "Was?" he managed to ask. "Is." She stood up and walked to the bulletin board, touching one of the crayon drawings gently. "Babies, actually. Twins." The room spun around him. "Twins. Mila and Mateo. They're 2 years old now." She turned back to face him, tears beginning to form in her eyes despite her professional composure. "They're beautiful, Liam. And they're brilliant. And they're yours." If you've ever had a moment when your entire world shifted on its axis, you know what Liam felt in that instant. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see how a man who was told he'd never be a father reacts to discovering he's been one all along. Because what happens next will restore your faith in destiny, second chances, and the incredible power of love to find its way home. Liam couldn't breathe. The office walls seemed to be closing in as Alani's words echoed in his mind like a mantra he couldn't quite believe. "They're yours. They're yours. They're yours." 2 years old, he repeated, his voice hoarse. "You've been raising my children for 2 years. "Our children," Alani corrected gently, moving back to her desk but remaining standing. "And yes." "Show me." She hesitated for a moment, then pulled out her phone. Her fingers trembled slightly as she scrolled through what must have been hundreds of photos before settling on one. She handed him the device, and Liam's world shifted completely off its axis. 2 beautiful children stared back at him from the screen. A little girl with Alani's intelligent eyes and his own stubborn jawline, holding hands with a boy who had Liam's dark hair and Alani's gentle smile. They were sitting on swings in what looked like a neighborhood park, both laughing at something off camera. "Mila and Mateo," Alani said softly. "She's older by 12 minutes and never lets him forget it. He's quieter, more thoughtful, but when he speaks, people listen. Just like me," Liam finished, unable to look away from the photo. My God, Alani. They're perfect. They are. She sat down heavily, as if the weight of carrying this secret for 2 years was finally taking its toll. Liam, I need you to understand something. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. I was a broke law student who could barely afford groceries, let alone support a baby. Babies? He corrected automatically, still staring at the photo. I didn't know it was twins until the ultrasound at 4 months. By then, I'd already made the decision to raise them alone rather than disrupt your life. She paused, her voice growing stronger. I saw the wedding photos in the magazines, Liam. You looked happy. Your wife looked perfect. I couldn't bear the thought of destroying that with a scandal. Liam finally looked up from the phone, meeting her eyes across the desk. So you just disappeared. Raised them by yourself. I finished law school while pregnant. Graduated summa cum laude with 2 babies in the front row, by the way. A hint of pride crept into her voice. I took night classes to get my master's in education law. Worked part-time at a legal aid clinic during the day, studied after the kids went to sleep. Jesus, Alani. How did you manage all that? Coffee. Lots of coffee. And daycare scholarships. And the kind of determination that comes from knowing 2 little people are counting on you to succeed. She gestured toward the law books lining her office walls. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Liam scrolled to another photo, the twins at what looked like a birthday party, chocolate cake smeared on their faces, absolute joy in their expressions. They don't know about me. They know their father is a good man who couldn't be with us. They know he's successful and kind and that someday when they're ready, they might meet him. Alani's voice was carefully neutral. I never spoke badly about you, Liam. I couldn't. Not when I saw so much of you in them every day. I want to meet them. The words came out before he could stop them, raw and desperate and completely honest. Alani was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. Are you sure? Because, Liam, once you meet them, once they know who you are, there's no going back. You'll be their father forever, not just biologically but in every way that matters. I was told I could never be a father, he said quietly. The doctor said the crash damaged me too severely. My ex-wife left me because she said I couldn't give her children. He looked at the phone again, at his daughter's laughing face. But I already am one, aren't I? You've been one since the day they were born. Does that scare you? The idea of me being in their lives? Alani considered the question seriously. It terrifies me, she admitted. For 2 years it's been just the 3 of us. We have routines, traditions, inside jokes. The thought of changing that dynamic. She shook her head. But they deserve to know their father. And honestly, watching you speak today, seeing the work you're doing with the foundation, I think you deserve to know them too. Liam handed her phone back, their fingers brushing in the exchange. The contact sent electricity up his arm, the same spark he'd felt 4 years ago in a hotel room when the world was different and they were different people. There's something else, Alani said, looking down at her hands. About that night. About us. What about it? I need you to know that it wasn't just what your friends paid for. When we talked, when we connected, that was real for me. More real than anything I'd experienced before. She looked up, meeting his eyes directly. I'd never done anything like that before and I never did again. It was my first and only time, and it led to the most beautiful thing in my life. The honesty in her voice broke something open in Liam's chest. It was real for me too. That's why I couldn't stop thinking about you after you left. That's why I spent months wondering if I'd dreamed the whole thing. You didn't dream it. And neither did I. She stood up, smoothing her suit jacket with nervous hands. So where do we go from here? Liam stood as well, feeling like he was standing on the edge of a cliff with no idea what lay below. I want to meet my children. I want to be their father in every way you'll let me. I want to make up for 2 years of missed birthdays and bedtime stories and first steps. They've been asking about you more lately. Especially since they started daycare and saw other kids with daddies. What do you tell them? The truth. That their daddy loves them very much, even though he can't be with us right now. That someday when the time is right, they'll understand everything. Liam felt tears threatening for the first time since the day Celeste had walked out. When can I meet them? Tomorrow is Saturday. We usually go to Lincoln Park in the morning. There's a playground there where they like to feed the ducks. Alani's professional mask was completely gone now, replaced by the vulnerability of a mother protecting her children while opening her heart to impossible hope. Would you like to join us? More than anything in the world. As they exchanged phone numbers and made plans for the next day, Liam couldn't help but think about the cruel irony of his situation. The woman who'd left him because he couldn't father children had been wrong about so many things. But she'd been right about one. His children were out there. They just weren't with her. They were with the woman who'd never asked him for anything, who'd raised them alone rather than complicate his life, who'd built a career helping other people's children while nurturing his own. Tomorrow he would meet his son and daughter for the first time. Tomorrow his life would finally make sense. Comment below if you believe that sometimes the most beautiful stories come from the most unexpected places. Because Liam's journey from broken man to blessed father is about to reach its most incredible chapter yet. Liam didn't sleep that night. He lay in his king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling of his penthouse, trying to wrap his mind around the fact that in a few hours, he would meet his children for the first time. He'd Googled, "How to meet your 2-year-old children," at 3 a.m., scrolling through parenting forums and child psychology articles until his eyes burned. Should he bring gifts? Would they be scared of him? What if they didn't like him? By dawn he'd changed clothes 4 times, settling finally on jeans and a simple button-down shirt, approachable but not trying too hard. He'd stopped at a toy store on the way to the park, purchasing age-appropriate educational toys after consulting with 3 different sales associates. Lincoln Park was beautiful on Saturday morning, filled with families enjoying the weekend sunshine. Liam spotted them before they saw him. Alani pushing 2 children on adjacent swings, all 3 of them laughing at something Matteo had said. His son. His daughter. The reality hit him like a lightning bolt as he watched them from a distance. These weren't abstract concepts anymore, not just photos on a phone. These were living, breathing, laughing little people who shared his DNA, who had grown from that single night when he and Alani had found something real in the midst of a complicated situation. Alani saw him first. She said something to the children and pointed in his direction. Liam's heart stopped as 2 pairs of curious eyes turned toward him. Mila, bold as her mother had described, hopped off her swing and marched directly toward him with the confidence of someone who had never met a stranger she couldn't charm. "Are you Daddy?" she asked, tilting her head to study his face with scientific precision. Liam dropped to one knee, bringing himself to her eye level. Up close, the resemblance was unmistakable. She had his stubborn chin and the same dark eyebrows that drew together when he was thinking hard. "I am," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "If you want me to be." Matteo approached more cautiously, staying close to Alani's side. He studied Liam with intelligent eyes that reminded him of his own childhood. Always observing, always analyzing, always thinking 3 steps ahead. "Hi Matteo," Liam said gently. "I've been looking forward to meeting you." "Daddy," Matteo said quietly. Liam glanced up at Alani, who was watching the interaction with tears in her eyes. How had she raised such emotionally intelligent children? The morning unfolded like a dream. During a quiet moment on a park bench while the twins played in a sandbox, Alani spoke softly beside him. "They like you. How can you tell?" "Mila shared her animal crackers with you. She's very protective of her snacks." Liam watched his children build what appeared to be an elaborate sandcastle with working drawbridge mechanisms. "They're incredible, Alani. What you've done raising them alone, I can't even begin to express how grateful I am." "They weren't alone," she said quietly. "They had me. And I had them. We were a family. And now." She was quiet for a long moment, watching Mila explain proper sandcastle construction techniques to a slightly older boy who had wandered over to observe their work. "Now we figure out what kind of family we become next." Over the following weeks, Liam began the delicate process of integrating himself into his children's lives. He started with Saturday mornings, then added Wednesday evening dinners, gradually building trust and routine. "You don't have to knock," Alani said one evening when he arrived for dinner. "You're their father. This is, well, it's becoming your home too, isn't it?" They were standing in the doorway of her modest apartment, close enough that he could smell her perfume, close enough to see the uncertainty in her eyes. The attraction that had sparked between them 4 years ago had never really died. It had just been buried under circumstances and time and the weight of responsibilities neither of them had expected. "Is that what you want?" he asked quietly. "For this to be my home?" Before she could answer, Matteo appeared at their feet, tugging on Liam's pants leg. "Daddy, can you help me with my tower? I can't make it stay up." The word, "Daddy," still sent shockwaves through Liam's system every time he heard it. He scooped up his son, noting how perfectly the little boy fit against his chest. "Of course, buddy. Let's go see what we're working with." As he carried Matteo toward the living room, where an elaborate block construction project covered most of the floor, Liam caught Alani watching them with an expression he couldn't quite read. Love, certainly, for both him and their son. But something else too. Hope, maybe, mixed with the kind of careful vulnerability that comes from having your heart broken before and being afraid to trust it to someone new. That night, after the kids were asleep and he was getting ready to leave for his own apartment, Alani stopped him at the door. "Liam, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "These past few weeks, watching you with Mila and Matteo, seeing how naturally you've stepped into being their father, it's been incredible. But it's also been confusing for me." "Confusing how?" She took a deep breath. "Because somewhere along the way this stopped being just about the children. And I don't know what to do with that." He reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers the way he had that night 4 years ago when they were different people with different problems and the same undeniable connection. "We figure it out together," he said simply. "All of it. The kids, us, whatever this is becoming. We figure it out together." But even as he said the words, even as she smiled and squeezed his hand in response, Liam had no idea that their carefully constructed new normal was about to be shattered by a ghost from his past. Hit that like button if you believe that building a family takes courage, patience, and the willingness to trust your heart to someone who could break it. The knock on Liam's office door came at exactly 5:47 p.m. on a Thursday evening. He knew the time precisely because he'd been watching the clock, counting down the minutes until he could leave to pick up Mila and Matteo from daycare. A routine that had become the highlight of his days. "Come in," he called, expecting his assistant with the quarterly reports he'd requested. Instead, Celeste walked through the door. She looked exactly as he remembered, flawlessly styled blonde hair, designer dress that probably cost more than most people's rent, the kind of confidence that came from never doubting you belonged in any room you entered. But there was something different in her eyes now, something that looked almost like desperation masked by determination. "Hello, Liam." He leaned back in his chair, studying his ex-wife with the detached curiosity of someone examining an artifact from a previous life. "Celeste, this is unexpected. May I sit?" "I don't think that's a good idea. I have somewhere to be." She sat anyway, crossing her legs with practiced elegance. "I know about the children." The words hit him like ice water in his veins. Liam's expression didn't change, but his grip tightened on his pen. "I'm sorry?" "The twins? Mila and Matteo." She smiled, but it was the cold smile of someone playing chess several moves ahead. "Did you really think you could keep something like that secret in a city like Chicago? Especially when you're Liam Caldwell? What do you want, Celeste?" "I want to talk. About us. About the mistake I made when I left you." Liam set down his pen carefully, giving himself time to process what she was really saying. "The mistake you made." "I was hurt, Liam. Devastated by the accident, by what we lost." "What we lost?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "We didn't lose anything, Celeste. You caused the accident that destroyed my fertility, then abandoned me because of it. There was no we in any of that. But that's just it." She leaned forward, her voice taking on the persuasive tone he remembered from their marriage, the voice she used when she wanted something. "You weren't infertile. You have children. Beautiful, healthy children who prove that everything the doctors said was wrong. What's your point?" "My point is that we gave up too easily. We let the medical diagnosis destroy something that could have been beautiful." She reached into her purse and pulled out a magazine, one of those glossy society publications that covered Chicago's elite. "I saw the photos from the foundation gala last month. You, the children's mother, playing happy family at your charity event." Liam glanced at the magazine without touching it. The photos were innocent enough. Him and Alani at the foundation's annual fundraiser, the twins dressed up and charming every donor in attendance. But he could see how they might be interpreted by someone looking for a story that wasn't there. "Her name is Alani," he said quietly. "And we weren't playing anything. She's very pretty. In a wholesome, girl-next-door sort of way." Celeste's voice carried just enough condescension to make Liam's jaw clench. "I'm sure she's grateful for everything you've given her." "Everything I've given her?" "The legitimacy. The social status. The financial security." Celeste shrugged as if she were discussing the weather. "Let's be honest, Liam. A single mother from... where is she from? She must feel like she won the lottery when Chicago's most eligible bachelor decided to play daddy." Liam stood up slowly, his movements controlled but dangerous. "I think you should leave now. Before you hear what I came to offer?" Celeste remained seated, unintimidated by his obvious anger. "I made a mistake, Liam. I let pride and fear destroy the best thing in my life. But we have a second chance now." "No, we don't. Those children need a proper mother. Someone who understands their world, who can navigate the social complexities they'll face as they grow up wealthy and privileged." She gestured toward herself with practiced elegance. I can give them stability, connections, the kind of upbringing that will serve them throughout their lives. They have a mother. The woman who raised them alone while you were. What were you doing for the last 3 years, Celeste? Besides looking for my replacement? A flash of anger crossed her perfect features. I was building a life. Growing my own business, expanding my social influence, becoming the kind of woman who could be a true partner to someone of your stature. And how did that work out for you? It worked out fine until I realized I'd given up the one man worth having for all the wrong reasons. She stood up, moving closer to his desk. Liam, we were good together. We could be good again. Those children deserve to have parents who understand their world. Their world is Lincoln Park on Saturday mornings and bedtime stories and teaching Mateo how elevators work. Their world is having a mother who worked 3 jobs to put herself through law school while pregnant with twins. Their world is real, Celeste. Something you've never understood. You think she loves you for you? Celeste's voice turned sharp, all pretense of sweetness falling away. You think this isn't about the money and the status and the fact that you can give her children a life she never could have provided alone? I think, Liam said, his voice deadly calm, that you're projecting your own motivations onto someone who's actually capable of love. Love? Celeste laughed, but there was no humor in it. Liam, please. She's a small-town girl who got pregnant by a billionaire. This is the ultimate fairy tale ending for someone like her. Someone like her. You mean someone intelligent, hardworking, and capable of sacrifice? Someone who raised 2 incredible children while building a career helping other people's kids? Someone who never asked me for anything except the chance to be a father to the children I didn't even know existed. Someone who trapped you with a pregnancy she conveniently forgot to mention until it served her purposes. The accusation hung in the air between them like poison. Liam felt his hands clench into fists, a rage building in his chest that he hadn't felt since the day she'd walked out of their marriage. Get out. Liam. Get out of my office. Get out of my building. Get out of my life. His voice was low but carried the kind of authority that made even Celeste take a step backward. And if I ever hear that you've approached my children or said one word against their mother, I will destroy you so completely that you'll spend the rest of your life remembering what it felt like to matter. For the first time since she'd walked into his office, Celeste looked genuinely shaken. But she recovered quickly, smoothing her dress and picking up her purse with the dignity of someone who'd never learned how to lose gracefully. You'll regret this, she said as she reached the door. When the novelty wears off and you realize what you're giving up for a woman who can never be your equal, you'll remember this conversation. No, Liam said quietly. I'll remember the day I finally understood the difference between a woman who wants to use me and a woman who actually loves me. After she left, Liam sat alone in his office for several minutes, trying to process the venom Celeste had brought into his carefully rebuilt world. The photos in the magazine showed exactly what he'd hoped they would, a family. Not perfect, not traditional, but real and beautiful and worth fighting for. His phone buzzed with a text from Alani, running 5 minutes late for pickup. Mateo is convinced he can build a rocket ship out of blocks and refuses to leave until it's finished. Sorry. 2 hearts. The emoji made him smile despite everything. 3 months ago, Alani had been too nervous to send him casual texts. Now she was sharing the small, daily frustrations and joys of parenting with someone who understood them because he lived them too. Celeste was wrong about everything. But especially about this. Alani Rivera had never needed him to give her anything except the chance to share what she'd already built. She'd taken 2 children and a law degree and created a life of purpose and meaning. She'd turned his foundation's youth program into something extraordinary. She'd made him a father without asking for anything in return. If that wasn't love, then he'd never understood the word at all. Share this with someone who knows that the people who truly love you will never ask you to choose between your past and your future. And that's how a man who was told he'd never be a father became the dad of 2 incredible children who call him their hero every single day. Celeste thought leaving him meant he'd never have a family. She believed that his broken body meant a broken future, that his inability to give her children meant he was less than whole. She measured his worth by what he could provide rather than who he was. But destiny had other plans. While Celeste was searching for a replacement who could give her the perfect family she thought she deserved, Liam was already a father. While she was calculating her next move in the game of social status, his children were taking their first steps, saying their first words, building towers out of blocks and dreaming dreams that would change the world. He didn't just become a dad, he became the father she never saw coming. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that love finds a way and that families are built on choice as much as chance, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to remember that their story isn't over, it's just getting started. Subscribe to Mr. Ashbourne Golden Narratives for more stories that will restore your faith in love, second chances, and the incredible power of the human heart to heal, grow, and find its way home. And remember, you are never as broken as you think you are, and you are never as far from your happy ending as it appears. Your greatest chapter might be waiting just around the corner. Until next time, keep believing in the magic of new beginnings.